Hi everyone, my name is Love, and for this video, I have a very special guest for today, and we are honored to be joined by the Chief Growth Officer of the company Passage, Bobby Green. So, hi.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
I just want to have a little background to our audience. So I am doing this video to share information about what this company does to students who are aspiring to come here to Canada as a under the student permit. So I have been receiving a lot of inquiries in my DM, Instagram, email about how to come here to Canada, and I know that the easiest way and the most expensive way is under the student visa, right? And unfortunately, I was not able to give answer to them because my path is very different. I have relatives here. So I came here to Canada under the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program as a permanent resident. And then now I'm a Canadian citizen and I am just doing school to become a nurse here in Manitoba. But most of the people from the Philippines and all over the world who are asking me questions don't have the unfair advantage that I have. I know that most of these students have problems with the financial assistance. So that's why when Passage reached out to me, even though I don't have any extensive idea about the student permit visa to come here to Canada, I welcomed them to just share the information to everyone. So I'll give Bobby a chance to introduce what Passage does and introduce Passage to us.
No, thank you. So hi everybody, I am Bobby. And let me tell you a little bit about Passage. So we essentially are building the technology that is going to allow us to fund awesome, deserving people all over the world to pursue their ambitions. And that right now looks a little smaller than it's going to look where we're going. So right now we're funding awesome people from all over the world to come solve labor shortages in Canada. That means we're targeting skilled trades, healthcare, and STEM. So science and technology. Obviously, we are aware that there are incredible people all over the world who are great students, they're hardworking, they're the exact kind of people we would be excited about bringing over to Canada, but those people are unable to access some of these opportunities simply because they came from a family that didn't have the money. So Passage is essentially trying to make sure that problem no longer exists in the world. That's really what we're up to and what we're trying to do. The specifics are a little more nuanced. So if you're trying to come to school in Canada, there are a whole bunch of things you've got to do. I kind of say there are 3 application processes you go through. You go through the school application, you go through the loan or the financing application, and then you go through the study permit application. Passage basically tries to help you compress all of those and make it really easy. We get you a letter of acceptance into the best public college, in my opinion, in George Brown College. We get you financing that covers both your tuition and first year living costs. And then we give you a letter of support that helps you in your study permit application. So that's kind of the end-to-end process. But essentially, yeah, we're trying to help awesome people pursue their dreams.
That sounds good. Bobby, I have a lot of questions. So I'll be reading some of the questions that the student might be asking you. We're going to start with what kind of collaboration does Passage have with relevant institutions such as universities, financial institutions?
Great question. This is a huge undertaking. It is not really easy to come up with this product and be able to offer loans up to $65,000 to people all over the world who are not Canadian citizens. Many of them may never have had a credit product before, so have no credit history, and so on. We work closely with our school partners. We do everything from the eligibility checking and ensuring that students match the requirements for the school. We do all of these other parts that are involved in anybody who's going to give money out. And we got to do things like background checks. We've got to do things like criminal checks. We have to make sure people are not associated with terrorism. We have partners across the financial world, the banks, the credit bureaus, and other folks that help us on the financial side. We work with schools to access the best opportunities for people all over the world. And we even need to work closely with people like government, since they are important in deciding who lets people into the country. There are so many that it's hard for me to name without taking up an hour of everybody's time. Each of our relationships with people are different. For government, it's basically making sure that we understand what they're trying to do and the laws that they want to put in place. We make sure that everything works for what their intentions are. For the schools, we have to work really closely with them because we're going to be helping them fill their seats with awesome students. The whole financial world is extremely complex, super regulated. So all of those go through incredibly rigorous vetting processes. I'm sure there's a ton more that I can't even think of right now. I guess all of the partners all over the world who help us find and connect with awesome people. I'm connected with everybody, it feels like.
If I am a student who wants to start with the application, so what is the first step that I need to do to apply for a loan to Passage? It's a loan, right?
Yes, so there's two situations or two types of programs. If you're gonna go to one of the best master's programs in Canada, we have a set of almost 100 programs from the best schools like the University of Toronto, Waterloo, and so on. For those, you're going to apply to the school directly for your letter of acceptance. When you get your letter of acceptance, you come to Passage and you use that to apply for a loan. Situation one, okay? Those are the master's programs. If you're going to go for a college program, like those we're offering with George Brown, you're going to actually figure out what program, get the documents together, then apply through Passage. So basically you go to app.passage.com. Then you're going to figure out which of those programs are most exciting and fit with your interests, but also your skills. Then you're going to get the documents you need together. Things like your passport, your transcripts, your proof of English proficiency, like an IELTS or a TOEFL, and then you're going to use all of those to apply for your letter of acceptance on Passage. That's step one.
Meaning that the student must have already the letter of acceptance before they come to you?
Only if you're going to the master's programs.
Okay.
If you're going to a college program, I help you get your letter of acceptance.
Oh, I see. So you also help with the letter of acceptance.
Exactly,
okay, I see. Another question is, can I apply for admission to Passage, or it's just strictly for loans?
For colleges, we help you get a fast letter of admission. That's right.
I have just like a curious question. So what if I am already a student here in Canada and, like, for example, I want to get a loan, maybe because like I already my money is only for 1 year?
This is actually a surprisingly common use case. A lot of students, particularly with the government policy changes that have happened since December, are left in a little bit of no man's land. They don't know if they can afford their studies and so on. So we absolutely work with qualified onshore students going to the programs that we offer. So you can use Passage just the same.
Can Passage loan cover for both undergraduate and graduate programs?
So we cover the following types of programs: 1 and 2 year master's programs and 1 or 2 year college programs. So that includes postgraduate certificate programs, certificate program, diplomas, and master's degrees. We don't offer undergraduate bachelors today just because of the length of time. It's quite hard to make the lending math work without having monthly payments that are too high for us to feel comfortable putting on students. We'll get there, but we're not there yet.
So what are the courses that are eligible for this loan?
We have about 100 that are on the master's side. These are usually technical masters like computer science, artificial intelligence, applied mathematics, those kind of programs. On the college side, we have 3 buckets. We have STEM. There is everything from construction engineering, AI development, blockchain development, cloud technologies. We have healthcare. Healthcare includes behavioral science technician. This is kind of like a more technical version of the range of healthcare jobs that include PSWs, different kinds of healthcare support workers, and early childhood education. So it helps give you some of the background of everything from learning disabilities and so on that makes you employable in all of those different fields. We also offer programs that are support and administrative in healthcare, like the dental office administrative program or the health informatics, where you're working with healthcare data and you're working with doctors and others for whatever use cases. And then last but not least, we have skilled trades. These are things like carpentry and precision machining and so on.
There are really a lot of options for students to choose from.
Yeah, there's a little over 100 right now, and there will be a lot more in the years to come, but we are purposefully actually starting small just to make sure we can offer all of our students a really incredible experience. And then as we get better, we'll keep opening it up.
Do the passage loan cover for tuition fee and cost of living? Are those the only coverage that you have?
Yeah, so you're right. In this world, there are generally two types of expenses. There's the tuition cost, where you have to pay usually upfront at one time that covers all of the cost of tuition. And then second, it's all of the costs it takes to live in Canada. You need an apartment, you got to buy food, you maybe need books, all of these things. They're grouped into two categories: tuition and living costs. Passage offers loans that cover both or one of the two. It depends on the student situation. Some families have families that can support them, so they only need a portion of the money. Other students need all of the money, and so we can either offer both or just one of the two.
Like for passage, the student is covering the expenses for the application, the medical tests, etc.
That's right.
Okay.
The application fee is about $110, and the medical fees, I believe, are not too much more than that. Yeah, similar. IELTS or TOEFL exam differs by country, so I don't have an exact number for you, but I believe it's a couple $100.
The student will cover all of those. You just cover the tuition and the cost of living. Do you give this lump sum, or is it a monthly basis?
Good question. So this is a complicated world, so let me try to break it down. So when you go to study abroad, there's two parts, right? You've got to get the school to admit you, and then you've got to get the government to give you a study permit. So for the school to admit a foreign student, they want to make sure the student has the money and can pay the tuition. That's how they know they're serious, right? So the schools usually sometimes accept a small deposit, but then you have to pay a full year or at least a semester upfront. So that's a one-time upfront payment. The living costs, obviously, every month you have to pay rent, and that is more over time. So what we do when we give you a loan, we take a portion of it and we pay the school tuition directly ourselves.
Okay.
So you don't even have to worry about that, it's covered. Then when you come into Canada and you get set up with a bank account, every month I put $1,720 in your bank account. So for the first 12 months, you're being supported so that you can get your bearings in Canada. You can get an apartment, you can kind of figure out the transportation situation, figure out food, and get accustomed to life in Canada. We usually cover 2 years of tuition and then 1 year of living costs. So most students typically work part-time, or their parents support them for their living costs in year 2.
What documents do I need to apply for a passage loan? Are there collateral requirements?
Yeah, so because think of passage as the technology that helps make sure the money is not a problem. I don't individually create the eligibility requirements for a program. That is what the schools do. I'm just helping communicate those to the student up front. So every different program will have different eligibility criteria. The good news is you can go on app.passage.com. Any of the programs, you just click on it and you can see all of the things you're required to do. Now, I can't tell everybody what's the overall average of what's needed. You are going to need a passport. You are going to need a certified and notarized transcript. So your high school or any secondary education you've gotten after high school. We're going to need a certification and the transcripts. And you are going to need your proof of English proficiency. Those are the three main things. There isn't much. In fact, there's no additional documentation for the loan. You basically give us consent to allow us to check the banks and credit bureaus you've worked with in other countries. And then I kind of do a lot of the work in the background to make sure you're not connected to financial crime and terrorism and basic things like that.
For example, unfortunately, what happens if my student visa is not granted? What's going to happen?
Yeah, so there's actually two situations. So one is that you don't get your attestation letter from the public college, and two, you don't get your study permit. In either situation, Passage will fully refund any of the costs you've incurred within 48 hours. So we want to make sure that it's not a risky thing people without money have to do. And I'm really trying to make it so that deserving people can get access. So I don't want to make this a huge problem for people. So don't worry, if anything bad happens, you'll be fully refunded in 48 hours.
Okay. Are they able to reapply again after they're not approved for
Yeah,
student
absolutely.
payment?
I mean, it's actually a pretty common thing in the study permit process. Sometimes people will go and do it by themselves, and they'll make a small clerical error. They'll put the wrong information in the wrong box, and they'll get denied. Then they can come back and reapply later. So the answer is yeah, that's a pretty common thing that happens.
When they get the LOA, are you gonna give the student like this financial proof?
Yeah, exactly. So they actually require that to be able to have a chance of their study permit. So Passage provides a letter of support that shows to the government that you have both years tuition covered as well as your first year living costs.
The first year living costs.
Yeah.
And then, so, okay, like the student already got the loans. When will they start to repay these loans?
So the way that we've structured it is a student starts school in September. Their first payment is due in October. So 1 month after they start. But you remember I just went over how part of the loan covers living costs. So once you get to Canada, you're going to set up a bank account. And every month I'm going to put $1,720 into your bank account. So even after you make your loan payment, it's, I'm sending you $1,700. You're paying me, I don't know, it's like $700 or $800. So you're basically netting $1,000 into your bank account every month for the first year.
And then you said that there's students who can also work at the same time, right? They can.
Yeah, I think it's a huge percentage of international students actually get a part-time job of some kind. They're working on campus. They're doing an odd job on the side. They're usually doing this either just for more money for entertainment, going out with friends, or they're trying to support their families back home, or even saving up for their next year living costs. So I think it's the vast majority of students do that. And
another situation, what happens if I am unable to pay back the loan at the stipulated time?
Yeah. So we have a policy of if the student is genuine, so they're studying, they're trying to do the right things to get a good job, and they're working towards PR and the ability to repay us, then we can be quite flexible. We understand life happens, especially when you've moved overseas. So we offer flexible policies for those kinds of students. They just have to reach out to us and explain the problem, and we'll work with them to make sure they're okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you just at any point can just not make payments. We report to the credit bureaus of Canada. So that means if you're intending to come to Canada, stay, and eventually pursue PR, you're going to need good credit or you will not be accepted. And so we do encourage students should only work with Passage if you're really serious. There are penalties if you don't repay.
So when is the best time for a student to start to apply for Passage? Like, is it like only after they got the LOA, or they can do it earlier time?
Yeah, it's obviously an individual thing. So there are 3 intakes per year. There's September, there's January, and May. So the timing of when it's right for a student and their family, that's up to them, not me. There is an intake coming up for the September 2024 intake. Students will need to get their applications in by early to mid-April, but the earlier the better, because it helps you get a higher chance of getting your attestation letter and then your study permit. So there's a little bit of urgency. If you could get your documents together and apply within the next month and a little bit, that's the best situation. Yeah, if you're unable to make that, you can work with us on the January deadline. So you can get started immediately. If you're going to apply to a college program, you come to us first. We'll help you apply to the school. You don't need any preparation. If you're going to go to a master's program, you apply directly to the school, then come to Passage for the loan. For
this Passage loan, when they apply and submit all their requirements, how long do they have to wait to know if you're going to approve the student for the loan?
When a student applies, we combine the school application and loan application together, right? So we give the letter of acceptance within 10 days, and the loan application takes only 4 or 5 days after that. So the whole thing is within 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Another question is, what is your final advice for international students who are looking to apply for Passage loan right now or in the future?
Great question, especially for the kind of students that I'm targeting, the ones that are really capable but don't have all of the money for study abroad. I just want people to know that even though it feels really overwhelming and daunting, this is doable. It's done by hundreds of thousands of people every year. So even though it does feel scary, I want people to know that people just like them every day are successful in this journey. what you do want to do is make sure that you are holding yourself accountable. You do need to do a lot of planning if you're going to move abroad and be successful. The good news is if you're willing to do that, you can really improve the life, how much money you earn, your ability to help your family, and all of those things that people are doing all this crazy process of moving abroad for today. So I just want to leave the message of optimism. You can do this, you can be successful. And if I can be helpful at all, please reach out.
For the part of the student, so of course, loan, it's a money thing. How can I trust Passage?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important questions everybody should be asking. The world is a big place. It's hard to know everybody directly if you're coming from the Philippines and into Canada. What I would suggest is look at who we are and what we've done in the past. Our founder, Martin Basiria, is somewhat famous in the space. You can Google him and see all the cool stuff he's done. That should give you a lot of confidence. We've been doing this a long time. Also, George Brown College is one of the best schools in the country. George Brown has an entire page, georgebrown.ca/passage, where they're talking about our partnership and recommending students to apply. So I think the public colleges do not often recommend products to anybody. Okay, that's actually a really big deal. And it goes to show the depth of our partnership with George Brown. So I suggest you go check that out or even reach out to the school directly to verify. I think that's important.
Why are you focusing on George Brown as the only college?
Yeah, so we are putting our money where our mouth is here, and we are actually putting up all of our own money right now. So we really want to make sure we can do anything to make sure our students are successful. So what we did is we looked at data of a whole bunch of the programs across the country, and we picked the programs in the school that we thought best lead to students' success. So that's why I'm only working with one college, and even within that college, only a small number of programs. It's because I've looked at international student graduates. I've seen what they've done after they finished those programs, which went on to PR, how many got jobs, how much did they earn, all of that data. And I selected the programs that I thought give students the best chance of success. Over time, we'll add more programs, more schools, but we want to be really cautious our first year to make sure that everybody does really well.
Another questions, and I'm gonna focus on the healthcare since I am a nurse back home and I am processing my nursing here as well. And most of my followers are also in the healthcare. What is the situation for healthcare workers here in Canada?
Yes, that is an incredibly good question, and maybe I'll even ask you to give your thoughts on this because you might know a lot more than me. So on the part that I do feel comfortable talking about, we've met with employers all across the country, hospital operators, physicians, nurses, and so on. And basically, I'll try to summarize it like this. There are a huge number of people retiring from these jobs in Canada, and Canadians are having less kids on average, so there's no new people to replace them. That means there's a huge amount of job openings that need to be filled by somebody, and that's your opportunity. There are jobs aplenty across most of the provinces in nursing, PSWs, support work of all kinds. Even what I mentioned was more of the early childhood support or children with disabilities. It feels like there are so many more jobs than we have a chance to fill, which is really good because it means people pursuing education in those programs have a much higher chance of landing relevant employment with good pay. Frankly, are being really sought after by employers, but also the government at large. What's your take, Love? What have you seen?
So far, the only downside is that, here in Manitoba, I will say that we need more nurses, we need more doctors. So I am working with a doctor, and they're really telling patients that we need more doctors. The waiting time is, for one doctor, takes up to 4 hours, which is insane. It's a nice thing to encourage a lot of international students to pursue their career here. Great opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I think it's one of the better places, one of the better sectors to be studying in.
It's of course, international students wants to come here to study, and eventually they want to become a permanent resident and then Canadian citizen as well. Like that is the end goal for some. Do you think that healthcare job is a good way to get a PR here in Canada?
Specific visa advice or immigration advice is a protected act in Canada, so I'm going to shy away from the question a little bit. But here's what I would say. It's not that hard. You can Google Canadian permanent residency draws and look at how many of them are pursuing healthcare. There are very clear intentions that the government is trying to bring in people from a healthcare background. And so I'll let you maybe answer your own question, but I think it's pretty easy to see if you do a little bit of Googling that it's pretty popular.
What are the next steps for Passage? Will you be doing more to help healthcare workers to get to Canada?
Yes. So our goal is to build ultimately a technology company that allows awesome people to move for their interests, regardless of where or what those interests are. So we want to be able to help families come directly for PR like you did, or refugees move from one country to another, or students to move not only just from the Philippines into Canada, but eventually from the Philippines into Hong Kong or Russia or Germany or the UK or Nigeria or Argentina. So I just want awesome people to pursue their interests and push the world forward. And all of the awesome, deserving people, I want to make sure that money is never standing in their way from going and doing the next cool thing.
Yes, that is right. So those are the questions that I have for Bobby for today. And thank you for answering those questions. And I believe that some of you guys have more questions than I have, because it's just like, to be honest, I'm uncomfortable with this topic because I'm not under the student visa, but it's just like I want to share the information that we have Passage to those students who wants to go here to Canada. Second thinking, because it's a lot of money. And for sure, because like for me, even if I came here as a permanent resident, I need show money too. Although it's not as expensive if you're coming here under the student permit, it's still a big money. And having like Passage as a loan, like a proof of money that you can thrive here to Canada as a student, is a really big help, because we have dreams to pursue. And thank you, Bobby, for giving this time to me to share to my audiences about the help that you can do to students who wants to come here to Canada.
My absolute pleasure. I'm here to help. If you have any other questions, I know we probably couldn't cover everything in this short period of time. Come to app.passage.com. You can find us on Instagram and all the other social media sites. Ask us questions. We'll do our best to help each and every one of you. And yeah, thanks so much. This was awesome.
Thank you, and see you again. Bye.
Yeah, take care.